streams.
Tom Harwood, GBNews.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Hello there, it's just gone 11 o'clock. You're watching GB News. I'm Bethany Elsey, here to bring you up to date. Police investigating the death of a 9-year-old girl in Lincolnshire have arrested a man on suspicion of her murder. Lilia Valutitier was fatally stabbed in Boston 2 days ago. Earlier today, police released CCTV images of a man they wanted to speak to. Since then, a 22-year-old has been detained after several members of the public came forward with information. The government has come under increasing pressure to compensate victims of the infected blood scandal after 3 former health secretaries say they should be paid as soon as possible. It's after the inquiry chairman said the surviving victims and their bereaved families should receive £100,000 each without delay. Almost 2,500 people died after being infected with HIV and hepatitis C through NHS treatments in the 70s and 80s. Liz Truss has unveiled a 6-point plan in her campaign to become the next Conservative leader by pledging to be the so-called Education Prime Minister. The Foreign Secretary says she plans to replace failing academies with free schools in an effort to get Britain's education system back on track. Ms Truss hopes the plans will give the government's Levelling Up scheme a boost and, in her own words, give every child the tools they need to succeed. Meanwhile, Rishi Sunak has vowed to rejuvenate Britain's high streets and slash the number of empty shops by 2025 if he wins the race to number 10. In his latest policy announcement, the former Chancellor says he'll support local businesses, including farmers' markets. Mr Sunak has also pledged to strengthen police powers in a bid to tackle antisocial behaviour in public spaces and crack down on graffiti and littering. Team England have won 21 medals so far on day 2 of the Commonwealth Games. The women's artistic gymnastics team won gold after a tightly fought competition. John Boy Smith took gold in the men's wheelchair marathon. And there were several medals won at the pool. Ben Proud won gold in the 50-metre butterfly. Imogen Clark took silver in the women's 50-metre breaststroke, swimming a new British record. It was silver for Brodie Williams, too, in the 100-metre backstroke, and second place for the women's relay team in the 4x100 freestyle. Well done to all of them. Now, the Prime Minister has shared his support for the England's women's team ahead of the Euros final tomorrow. In a letter to the team, Boris Johnson paid tribute to what he called their astounding talent. And the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, said he hopes to see history made tomorrow. The Lionesses will take on Germany at Wembley Stadium in a bid to win their first ever major championship trophy. That final's at Wembley Stadium with 90,000 fans expected to be there. On TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now, it's time for Headliners with Mark Dolan.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Headliners, your first look at tomorrow's papers in the company of 2 top comedians tonight, the brilliant Lewis Schaefer and Nick Dixon. Let's get straight to the front pages. And we start with the Sunday Telegraph. Let's have a look at what they've got. £10 fine for an NHS no-show, says Sunak. And no Scottish referendum on my watch, pledges Truss. Also, England expects, of course, tomorrow is the final of the Women's Euros. England versus Germany at Wembley. Come on, England. Badenoch, civil servants prevented me learning the truth about the Tavistock clinic. And blow to Levelling Up as Toyota warns it may pull out of UK over ban on hybrid models. The Independent Britons want the new leader of the Conservative Party to face a general election. Majority say Truss or Sunak should call a snap poll. The Observer now, slick Sunak urged change tactics before it's too late and act now on water or see queues in the streets. The government being urged to roll out a national hosepipe ban. Also, another photograph of the England players training ahead of the Euros final tomorrow. It's the final countdown, say the Observer. Sunday Times, Charles accepted £1 million from the family of Osama bin Laden. Prince had a meeting at Clarence House and a 7-figure donation from the Saudis followed. Liz Truss promises an Oxbridge interview for every A-star pupil. And Badenoch, I was told not to speak to patients at the trans clinic, the Tavistock Centre. Sunday Express now. Rishi, I'll save the high street. PM contender vows to help shops thrive, punish hooligans and stop banks closing cash machines. Also plot to force Boris out of Parliament. And last but not least, the Daily Star Sunday, sizzling summer will last until Halloween. Hot as hell. Woohoo, say the Daily Star. Super hot days will be with us all the way to Halloween, say weather boffins, with a balmy autumn forecast. What's not to like? And those are your headlines. Let's start with the Mail on Sunday and more bad news for Team Rishi, Nick.
Yep, this is Tom Tugendhat embraces Liz Truss on stage and, of course, embraces her metaphorically as well by endorsing her to be the next Prime Minister as flailing rival Rishi Sunak declares war on woke, which we'll get to later. So cynics will say this is a smart move because she's winning, so it's a good time to endorse her. Even better time was Jacob Rees-Mogg and Nadine Dorries from the start endorsing Truss. I also said Truss would win, but never mind. The front-runner never wins a Tory leadership race, so that's where Rishi's gone wrong. He peaked too early. He was the Heseltine. He also wielded the knife, never wield the knife against Boris because the members won't forgive you. And Truss has been getting more impressive. If you watched the hustings the other day in Leeds, she was very good. She threw in a few local references, like any good stand-up comedian. She referenced Don Revie, the famous Leeds football manager. She also said she knew what women were. She also said that you shouldn't be able to get gender surgery if you're under 18, all these sensible things. And, of course, she's been the sort of tax-cutting candidate. Well, nearly all the candidates were tax-cutting candidates, except Rishi, who's now had to flip to being a tax-cutting candidate, and he said he'll change his VAT policy, and he's suddenly saying all these anti-woke things because he's getting a bit desperate. She's also got the backing of Ben Wallace, so it's all going very well for her. I think the only way it could go wrong is if any sort of sleaze came out, any revelations. So shy of that, I think she'll win it.
Yes, it seems like she's got it in the bag, Lewis Schaefer.
I haven't heard of these two people, so I don't know. And I don't think anybody else has, and I know British people have. I'm an American, and I don't know who these people are. That's the failure of this system that you have here. Nothing personal. They could
because it's not presidential, is that your argument?
It's not. You're asking people to make a choice between two people that they haven't heard of and they don't know about.
The members have heard of them, and they're the ones making the choice. Sorry to interrupt.
All right, so I'm not a member. Screw those people.
Well, but you raise a good point, because the public, I mean, they know the Chancellor pretty well, Rishi Sunak, and they'll be aware of the Foreign Secretary, particularly because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Yeah. It's become a more prominent cabinet position, if it wasn't already. However, the bottom line is it is the next Prime Minister of this country. You do wonder, don't you, whether the Tories might regret defenestrating Boris Johnson in the first place.
I love that word. Defenestrate. You threw the guy out. They threw the guy out the window. I mean, they might. I mean, but the fact is that that's the way the system works in this country. It's not a presidential system, and I think people are going to. I think the Conservatives are going to pay a price for their success, and their success was in getting Brexit done, whether you like that or not. The success was in dealing with COVID, whether you like that or not.
And being in power for 12 years. I mean, yeah. US politics is much more showbiz, isn't it? Certainly in the case of Donald Trump. And back in the day, of course, Ronald Reagan. Boris was showbiz, wasn't he? He was box office. You couldn't say the same for Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak, could you? I mean, will Will they get the red carpet treatment when they go to Washington, either of them, as Prime Minister?
They will, because they're the Prime Minister of a very large island off the coast of America. I mean, of course they're going to be treated.
And on that outrageous and disgraceful, treacherous note, let's move on now to the Metro. And it looks like Rishi's fighting back against woke nonsense. Tell us more, Lewis.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to figure this whole thing out. I mean, basically, he's saying what everybody else believes already. So, like what Nick said, is that he said he's against woke nonsense, and if he wins the Conservative Party leadership, he's going to review the Equalities Act. He blames everything on the Equalities Act, but the fact is, this has been happening, whether there was an Equality Act 12 years ago or not. And so, is this enough for people? I mean, you hope the Conservative Party is for preserving language and statues and the British way of life. You hope that. They're called conservative for a reason.
But they've been in power for 12 years, and on their watch, extreme political correctness, wokeism has infiltrated corporations, the media, and our institutions, public institutions.
Yeah, they haven't given what they've been promising on the tin.
Because if you look at the likes of Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor, and of course previously Donald Trump, I mean, they pushed back against this woke nonsense, didn't they?
Well, they did, and I think that's what a conservative party. Remember, conservative is in the name. They should conserve whatever great.
But they don't do that anymore. I mean, DeSantis in America had legislation which required that schools don't talk to primary school children, elementary school kids, about sex, and about things like gender and orientation. Not because the authorities and the government is homophobic or transphobic, but it's just not something a 5-year-old should be thinking about.
Well, I'm with you, and I think that, and he's totally right on this. Did he go far enough? He said up until, I think, the 3rd grade, so if I remember correctly. So he didn't really... So even Ron DeSantis, the bill should have been, no one can discuss this up until the age of 18.
Oh, yeah, or maybe 21. Nick, are you ready for a conversation about trans rights?
I think we've had plenty, haven't we, Mark? It seems like we do nothing but. I mean, what Rishi's had to do here, he's desperate, he's losing, so he's suddenly said sex means biological sex when he struggled with these questions before, when he couldn't answer what a woman was. Now he's saying protect mothers and women from erasure. And it's so transparent what he's doing. Conservatives, I mean, as Lewis said, they're not conservative. They only say conservative stuff when they're desperate, in this case, especially desperate for votes.
Even Boris wasn't that effusive about what a woman is, was he?
He was quite good. He made a statement about it, and he said they shouldn't be in you know...
Biological sex trumps everything else.
Right, and there shouldn't be this problem in women's sport. You shouldn't have biological men in women's sport. He did come out and say that.
Before that, he spluttered and...
No, it wasn't amazing. It was crumbs, but we're so grateful for crumbs of conservatism, because this is what the Conservative Party do. It's so funny. They obviously know where the country is, because they'll give these things when they know they need votes. But then when they don't, they just carry on with their weird globalist agenda that no one wants. And so... So Rishi's got a bit desperate, and I think the rhetoric, even though I like the content of what he's saying, I don't think the rhetoric suits him. He's saying, what's the point in stopping the bulldozers in the Greenbelt if we allow left-wing agitators to take a bulldozer to our history? Then he says, we're determined to end the brainwashing, vandalism and finger-pointing. It's just not his tone. His tone is much more the slick Blair tone. So it strikes me he's got a bit desperate, and he's doing things that are not him to try and claw some votes back, obviously.
Yes, I mean, the only truly anti-woke candidate was Kemi Badenoch, wasn't she?
Suella was pretty anti-woke. Suella was very anti-woke, but she got knocked out early. Then Kemi was the next best anti-woke choice. But yes, you're right.
But Boris, he knows women. I mean, he's made enough of them pregnant.
And on that note...
And that's it, and that was the...
do you think, briefly, an election in a couple of years' time, probably it'll be Prime Minister Truss versus Keir Starmer. Do you think that the war on woke will be an election issue, or will it be cost of living only?
Well, it's going to be mainly cost of living and all those type of things, but I think the war on woke is bigger than some people claim. Some people say, oh, it's a small Twitter thing. I think it's now infecting everything. We can see the civil service, rail managers getting sacked, police arresting for no reason, all these things we're going to get to. So it is a big issue. And I do think Truss may do better against Starmer than people think, because she's been underestimated so far, and she keeps getting better.
Well, that's right. We'll come to a story about an innocent man who asked a question about, cultural issues and lost his job. We'll come to that shortly. But the Mail on Sunday now, and it looks like the US is walking a tightrope over in the Far East.
Yeah. Beijing holds live fire naval drills opposite Taiwan after threatening to shoot down US Speaker Nancy Pelosi as her Asia tour begins. Now,
Every cloud.
I know. Well, you've said it, so I don't have to, Mark. I wasn't sure if we can advocate that on this channel, but Pelosi's awful. But this is further than I would say we should go. But it's worrying that China has got so bold. You know, you find yourself asking, would this happen under DJT, the Trumpster? Very unlikely. The world's become more unstable. China thinks we're a joke. Russia thinks we're a joke. Not we. Lewis's country is a joke. And so they're trying on these kind of things. Obviously, China's attitude towards Taiwan is appalling. And by the way, I would add, why are they so annoyed about her flying to a country that doesn't exist, according to them? So I would put that in there. But they're threatening these bizarre things. They're saying the US will bear all consequences for it. They're saying those who play with fire will perish by it. They even said, and the Global Times, their paper has said that has said, don't say we didn't warn you, which is apparently the rhetoric it used before the wars in India and Vietnam. So they're using sort of warlike rhetoric, and they're saying, don't do this tour. Biden has been typically weak, and he's just said, the military thinks it's not a good idea right now, or I don't know what the status of it is. Why would you know? You're just the president, you know, at the most important time. So yeah, it basically, Biden has made the world very unsafe by being so weak, and the whole Biden administration. So now China is acting up.
Of course, we've seen that with the pathetic surrender in Afghanistan and the botched withdrawal. This is not a good look from the leader of the free world. And, you know, if you think that Russia's a problem with its invasion of Ukraine, just wait till China turns nasty, Lewis.
Well, I mean, the problem is, Donald Trump pointed out the problem 40 years ago, which was, why is America defending Taiwan? Why are we defending South Korea? Why are we defending Japan? Why are we defending everybody in the entire world? You know, and I think
democracies, they're, you know, diplomatic, political, and economic partners.
Just because they're nice people, are we going to defend everybody? I'm going to tell you something. I don't believe this is a dangerous situation, because if it was a dangerous situation, China is acting in a very un-Chinese way. I don't think that China is a kind of country that goes there and says, if you do this, you're going to be in trouble. They're not a country that says that.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah, we'll come back to that, I've got no doubt. Let's go to the Independent on Sunday now, and Russia is holding more European countries hostage, Lewis.
Well, I mean, they're cutting off gas to Latvia. I mean, they cut off gas to the Netherlands, to Poland, because they want to be paid in dollars. But if they get paid in dollars, it violates sanctions. So there are sanctions against Russia, but there's no sanctions against taking Russian gas. So it's hypocrisy on the West's part.
Yeah.
Would you say that?
You can.
I think I know what I'm talking about sometimes.
Well, no, I think you've got your hammer on the nail, as they say.
Yeah, hammer on the nail.
I think you've done something like that. But I mean, that's the issue, isn't it? Which is that the West is hamstrung really in relation to the sanctions on Russia.
And if Latvia were invaded by Russia, what do you think the West would do? Yeah. Would we do anything? Would we do something different than we did in the Ukraine, even though they are in NATO?
Yeah.
They
would be obliged to, wouldn't they? And it would be World War III.
But you know what? They wouldn't be obliged to, because they would find some way out of it, unfortunately. America, and Donald Trump was right about this 40 years ago. He said we're in too many places, defending too many people, which isn't in our best interest. I support Latvians. I know Latvians. They're lovely people. Some of those beautiful women in the world are Latvians.
Although I think NATO's budget did go way up under Trump, actually. But anyway, just to give the other side.
It did, because there's things that he couldn't do. But he did say it, at least. At least somebody said it.
Yeah, I understand your point. He preferred this America first thing and not being the empire and the neocon thing. But this is...
The fact that people have to say America first, like that's something unusual, is wrong.
Every country should have that mentality.
Be first.
This is great. I didn't know you were such a hardcore Trump fan. Normally that's my role on the show.
You as a comedian, Lewis Schaefer first.
Yeah, everybody should be first. I think it was Hillel that said, if I'm not for myself, who am I for?
Who said that?
I think it was Hillel. I'm
glad that's who you said it was.
You should check that.
Nick?
Yeah, well, this is just the type of war that we have now. I mean, they cut off the gas supply to Germany. They cut it down to 20%, and they said it was due to repairs to turbines, which is amusing. There's a reason given. I mean, I say amusing. It's a horrific situation. And And now, so it's a war between the economic sanctions against Russia and Russia saying, well, then you can't have any gas. And people are saying, oh, Putin's desperate because he's trying to keep the Russian economy afloat. If he doesn't do this, he'll have a massive recession. But then again, Europe's going to get pretty desperate if they don't have any gas. So that's just this war.
And I think Donald Trump had said this just a couple of years ago, where he said Germany's in big trouble.
He did.
For taking
2018.
And they all laughed at him, and he gave Merkel a white flag, as I've said before on this show. He said, I think it was a napkin, he said, take this because you're basically waving a white flag to Russia. And he's been proved right. Glad you're such a big Trump fan, though.
There you go. I'm not such a big Trump fan. But when Trump is right, you got to give the guy credit.
Oh, there you go. Well said. The Sunday Times next. And, the policing free speech by the looks of it, Nick.
Yeah, well, the headline's police criticise over arrest for gay swastika post. If you've somehow missed this, Lawrence Fox posted a sort of composite of the trans flag, and he made it into a swastika to make a political, fairly obvious satirical statement, fairly crude, but he was just making a statement.
Would be offensive to many.
It was offensive, but I think people were either a bit thick or a bit disingenuous if they didn't see what he was doing, which was a crude satirical statement saying that this has become the new authoritarianism. And that's clearly what he was doing to me. Whether you like it or think or not, someone then, this veteran who's chosen to remain anonymous, reposted it and then had several visits from police officers saying that he couldn't do this because he'd caused anxiety to someone who had complained. Subjective anxiety caused to someone now gets you arrested, and they bit off more than they could chew because Harry Miller was there, the cop who famously won his case when he liked Limerick. It was this absurd case that he won, landmark free speech case. He was there explaining to the police how to do their job and why they were wrong, and he got arrested for obstructing. Then he was released. The veteran has also been released, seemingly both of them without charge. And the update to the story is that Donna Jones, the Police and Crime Commissioner, has said, I'm concerned about both the proportionality and necessity of the police's response to this incident. When incidents on social media receive 2 visits from police officers, but burglaries and non-domestic break-ins don't always get a police response, something is wrong. And I would go even further and say we're in a country where rape has been ignored and covered up for decades, while a social media post will get you investigated. I mean, it is that absurd.
At one point, I think 5 police officers were involved.
Absolutely mad. And let me add one more thing. Alex McCarran filmed it, and he said at one point, he asked an officer, why didn't you then arrest the editorial staff of the Daily Mail who published this? Yeah. And they said, we don't have the manpower. So they would arrest everyone if they could. It's purely a manpower question. It's not a question of whether that's a good idea. It's purely we can't physically arrest you all.
On a previous occasion, with parallels to what happened in this viral video, one police officer said to somebody that was accused of a so-called hate crime, is that we need to check your thinking.
Yes.
I mean, this is dark stuff. This is dystopian, isn't it, Lewis?
And the fact is that they said to the dude, did they not? You've got to pay £60 to be re-educated. Oh, yeah, brilliant. Which is really scary.
Yeah.
Or they say, we're going to arrest you.
Yeah. They offered him to basically buy his way out of it.
Yeah.
Well, if you pay this and go to this course, he was like, no, I won't. So, yeah, you can now buy your way out of it. Absolutely disgusting. We don't have a police force. We have some sort of weird enforcement arm of the woke ideology, or whatever you want to call it.
You're right. The cops have lost the plot. Coming up, we've got a whole host of wokeness from schools, prisons, and even libraries. You won't want to miss it. See you shortly.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
I'm Mark Dolan and you're watching Headliners, your first look at tomorrow's papers. Helping me do that are the brilliant comedians Lewis Schaefer, there he is, look at him studying the papers, assiduous as ever, and my good friend Nick Dixon. Now let's get into another story, and kicking off with part two is The Observer and another story about the police. This time they could be getting it right, Lewis.
Well, no, they're not getting it right. Police cannot get anything right. They're basically saying to people at the Caribbean Carnival in Manchester that if you're linked to crime, you're not invited.
Why is that a problem?
It's a problem because these people haven't done anything wrong. They're basically banished people. It's like that ASBO order that they would give.
Oh, yeah.
And who's to say? It's basically the police being judge, jury, and executioner.
Yeah.
Which is the same story as before. The police in this country, I think you don't want to say anything bad about them because they could come after us.
It's true. They wield a lot of power. Nick Dixon?
I think it's slightly different from the story before. Profiling is right. It's unpleasant. If it happens to you, it's very unpleasant. It's even happened to me when I was younger. I got pulled over twice for things I hadn't done, and it happens to people a lot. Obviously, it seems to happen to certain races more, and it's very unpleasant. Happened to my mate the other day. I was on the phone to when he got arrested. It's very nasty, I'm sure, if you're involved in it. But the problem is resources. Like Sam Harris said, you can't go searching every old woman from Ohio at the airport if you're worried about terrorism, because it's just not smart use of resources. So this is the problem. So you have to stop people who you think, let's say the stop and search policy, you have to stop people who you think might be carrying weapons. And you can actually save the lives of people. In that case, you save lives of black kids.
You're saying that.
But
that's
no, I'm giving both sides.
No, you're not.
I'm about to, if you let me.
Okay, sorry.
No, I'm allowed to. But the problem is, you risk alienating people, and it's unpleasant. But the problem is, if you don't do it, you risk crimes, and you risk people being killed who could have been avoided being killed.
Yeah.
Because of political correctness, you don't want to do it. That's the danger, or because of sensitivity.
It's not the job of the police to spot people and to say you've got a greater pre-dereliction, a chance of committing a crime, so we're not going to let you go to the Caribbean Festival. That's outrageous.
Oh, well, I was going to say, in this case, yes, you'd be very annoyed to receive one of these letters. I don't know enough about this particular case.
And do they have a chance to redress the problem?
No, this is very, very frustrating. If you were totally innocent and you got on these letters, it would be awful. I was speaking more broadly about the nature of stop and search and those kind of policies.
Well, that's right. I mean, when Theresa May, as Prime Minister, brought back stop and search, crime fell. Knife crime fell in particular.
So there you go.
And but it's a blunt tool, and that's the problem, isn't it? And this is a blunt tool.
It's a blunt tool, and I'm against it. And in New York, I don't know whether we spoke about this the last time with Mayor Giuliani and where the broken windows policy. Yeah. Whatever. Somebody commits a small crime, they throw the book at him, right? And that, I believe, you can do. Not if someone commits no crime and say, well, people who look like you. Anyway, I don't care about this story because I'm an old white man. And this
do you enjoy a carnival, Lewis?
I do enjoy carnival. Carnival means meat, and I'm a meat eater.
Well, you are. You're a carnivore, that's right.
I'm a carnivore.
I'm just picturing you at a carnival, maybe sort of naked, painted orange or something.
Well,
dancing, cavorting around.
I got to say this, Lewis Schaefer, not gay in the UK.
There you go. I'm glad we've had that national warning. The Sunday Telegraph now with something that's been described as a radical attempt to rehabilitate Britain's young hardcore criminals. Nick, tell me more.
Yes, welcome to the prison school that will be 4 times more expensive than Eton. So they're trying to recreate a family home environment, and this is costing the taxpayer £186,000 per child. And what it is that some of Britain's most violent teenagers will start their day with yoga and mindfulness classes and that kind of thing. So it's a controversial policy. Dominic Raab is backing it. It's been tried in Scandinavia, inevitably. And I mean, and someone even says here, the school's principal, we're trying to do everything like a home. We're creating a space that will function like a family, even though we know we're not their parents, which is kind of a weird irony about the state sort of trying to take over. I mean, it's a failure of parenting that's led to this. But anyway, there's some ironies there. But it's this thing, it's a very liberal approach where you feel like, part of you feels like, is it right to be paying huge amounts of taxpayers' money for this? And you just have that strange feeling, a bit like that guy in Norway that killed all those children, that horrific thing, and then he got 3 rooms and a PlayStation. Yeah. And you think that's this very Scandinavian liberal approach. And part of you just thinks, this feels wrong, because where is the punishment for, it's supposed to be crime and punishment, not crime and yoga. But then, at the same time, if it avoids suffering in the future and avoids future cost, the one time you can maybe make a case for it is with young people, which is what this is, if you're going to avoid all kinds of future suffering. But I'm still a bit icky about it.
Yeah, icky, I think, is the right word. Teachers need new gender identity rules. This in the Sunday Times, Lewis.
Well, I think this is pretty good news. You know, I hate to make an opinion, but basically the big news is they closed the Tavistock Centre.
And can you remind us what the Tavistock Centre is?
I don't even know what they do inside that place. But basically, they allow parents to let their children be mutilated to get back at the divorced father.
Oh, a specific answer. I mean, the ultimate issue with the Tavistock Centre is that they make diagnoses about whether children and young people are essentially born in the wrong bodies and allow them to transition. Yeah. The manner in which that's happened has been controversial and now shut down because of many, many concerns about just what was happening there, Nick.
Yeah, and the concern with this story is that the teachers are acting as a kind of, and the schools are acting as a kind of pipeline, they're calling it, towards things like the clinics like Tavistock. So they say here, many of our children come across gender identity theory in schools, which then played an active role in socially transitioning them without parental knowledge or clinical oversight. And that's where it gets very, very dodgy. When parents question these policies, schools have denied they exist, told us we can't view educational resources, and in some cases reported us to social services for failing to affirm our children as the opposite sex. So schools are encouraging this bizarre, radical stuff, which is then leading to kids thinking they're the other gender, and then leads to them going to places like Tavistock and getting the treatment, as Lewis mentioned, mutilated in some cases. But Suella Braverman took a strong line on this. She said that schools need to take a much further line and not have this unquestioning approach. We have this strange approach now where the children lead the teachers, this sort of bizarre Rousseauian idea that we need to listen to the noble savages. You know, it's bizarre, you know, this idea that people are whatever, they should be free and just do what they want. Why are we listening to children and not, teachers there to guide them, surely, not to just listen to them?
So, Nick, what is the guidance that the teachers have been asked?
I don't understand the question.
What are the teachers, they're issuing guidance for the teachers to help them. Are they the guidance is, don't go to don't...
There's a request for more guidance so that they know what to do.
So there hasn't been guidance. I should know this, but I don't. There hasn't been guidance.
Right, there hasn't been enough guidance, and what they're saying is we need more guidance so that we don't just... So we can just not let children run amok, not be... not still be compassionate, but just not let them necessarily run amok with...
So guidance is coming, but...
Well, I've got
requesting it.
4 words of guidance for any teacher to a kid that's confused about their gender, which is wait till you're 18. And now let's crack on and learn maths.
Yeah, exactly.
Am I old-fashioned?
No, you're totally right. I once, when I was in high school, I went through a period where I thought that I was a very good baseball player.
Identified as an athlete.
As an athlete, I showed up for to try out for the baseball team in my high school, and they gave me guidance to tell me.
They did. Yeah, no amount of medication would get you into.
Was going to help me. No,
I'm afraid not. Well, you've got other qualities and other talents. The Sunday Telegraph next, and I'm sure you've got a lot to say about drag queens, Nick.
My expert topic. Well, it's becoming everyone's expert topic, bizarrely. So the headline is Call Drag Queens Pantomime Dames to Fool Protesters, Librarians Told. So this was a piece of advice. This was Ian Anstis, a librarian from Cheshire West and Chester. And he said, we've always said pantomime dame because we don't want protesters outside our building. So what's happening is there's this drag queen story hours, where for some reason that is yet to be explained to me, drag queens go into libraries and sort of tell kids stories. In some cases, dance and things like this, which was they've been accused of twerking in front of toddlers, which is obviously horrific. And there's an idea here that it's just like pantomime, and I've seen people tweeting this now. This is a new thing for the left to tweet. Oh, it's like pantomime. It's not like pantomime. Pantomime is very mild. It's not sexualized. The language is moderate. So, I mean, Nadine Whittam the other day said that they called this stuff wholesome in reply to Stella Creasy on Twitter. Absolutely insane, deranged. And if you actually look into it, in the US, lots of these people. I'm not saying these people are necessarily anything to do with molesting children or anything. It's just that in the US, several people involved in these kind of things have been, like Bryce Williams, 25 counts of child porn, William travesties, sex crimes against 4 children, Alberto Garza molesting an 8-year-old. I just looked into this because this does happen. Now, I'm not saying these people are doing that, but I do ask, why do we need to send drag queens into libraries to talk to kids and tell them stories? And why do they want to do it is what I don't understand. Because it's OK there's nothing wrong with drag queens in a certain environment if people choose to go there, nightclubs and so on. That's been a thing for ages. I'm not saying that doesn't exist, or I'm not saying that they're bad people or anything like that. But why does it have to be in libraries in front of kids?
Isn't it because children are being groomed into this crazy trans ideology which challenges the idea that there are 2 biological sexes?
That's one answer.
It's all part of the thing. But the bigger picture is that, first of all, libraries why is the council in charge of libraries? Why are libraries controlled by the government? And I think that's the problem.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, I think, Nick, there's a difference between tolerance and understanding of transitioning and essentially teaching children to do it. And I think that's the space that teachers now occupy.
Yeah, and it's not just what they're teaching them. There's been dancing, there's been sexual language. Keep children away from adult sexuality. It's not that complicated. We all still believe this, actually, except for an absolute fringe. And this is where they'll go wrong, because people will always defend their children, and this is where these people overreach.
Spot on, well said. The Sunday Express now, and the attraction of smoking in Amsterdam is waning. So why don't we bring the experience here, Leo?
Yeah. Well, this is an interesting story because it comes from the Tories, basically, and they're saying they should legal. It's like the Tories are so far behind the times. They're saying, let's legalize cannabis, right? And we're going to make $32 billion a year, 32 billion pounds a year, not even dollars, becoming a worldwide hub of pot smoking. And it's the all-party cannabidiol. Do you know that word? The all-party cannabis.
I'm not sure anyone knows that word.
I don't know.
Oh, cannabidiol.
Cannabidiol.
Products.
I actually looked it up myself. Okay, it's chaired by conservatives, and I don't know where they're getting 32. I know people smoke a lot of pot in this country, like they do everywhere. Okay. Speaking for myself, I'm not going to speak for myself, is people smoke pot, but they think the Britain is going to become a place where you're going to smoke pot.
I mean, I personally don't want it to be normalised because I don't think it's great for your mental or physical health. And I think that's the issue with legalisation, Nick.
Absolutely. I mean, like Peter Hitchens says, it's a dangerous drug. It has permanent effects it can have permanent effects on your brain and so on, and it's much stronger than it used to be. Now, the only argument for it is a kind of cynical, fatalistic argument that everyone's doing it anyway. They're not enforcing the law on it anyway, so perhaps you should just make some money off it. I find this, unfortunately, this has come from conservative politicians like Crispin Blunt, which is this kind of free market conservatism. It's not real conservatism. It's just like, oh, let's make money. But it never asks, is this something we should be doing? It's this post-Thatcher confusion about conservatism. You shouldn't have conservative politicians advocating legalising drugs.
I'm with you in that I don't think pot smoking is good. Okay, but I think keeping it illegal is bad. The question is, how do you make things legal so it doesn't bother?
If you legalise,
that's not what Mark said. How can you be with him and then state the opposite?
He's all over the shop. Worse than Rishi Sunak. If you legalise cannabis, there will be more consumption of cannabis, I think.
One would think. I mean, you walk down a London street, there could scarcely be more, but You imagine when you legalise it, that's what I think.
And here's the thing: I don't want people getting stoned and then going to work or driving a bus.
As we've seen tonight from Lewis, it's not a good idea.
No, definitely. Teaching a classroom of children, it's much easier to smoke a spliff and then go and do your job because it's harder to be detected. If you have a couple of pints, people can smell it on your breath.
When you're a drag queen doing a story in a library, the last thing I want is for you to be stoned.
By the way, I've got one other thought about cannabis, which is that it smells disgusting. And if we decriminalise it, we'll have to smell that all the time.
Yes,
you'll be walking down the street and you're having a coffee and you've got to get this whiff of plant in your face.
I just came back from New York, and that's the smell in New York.
Really?
Where I was out down in Brooklyn.
Do we want that? Nick Dixon, is that progress?
No, it's a fallen city, New York, and we don't want that here.
That's it.
Well, since I left.
Yeah, too right. Speaking of which, that's us for part 2, but lots more to come. We've saved our best till last. Coming up after the break, the row between Elon Musk and Twitter continues. What's the quickest way to lose a job over Zoom? And the drug smugglers foiled by a seal. See you shortly.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital, absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Anything wrong?
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at tomorrow's papers. I'm Mark Dolan, and helping me digest the front pages are the brilliant comedians Lewis Schaefer and Sir Nicholas of Dixon. Now, let's go straight to a comedy story, The Observer next. And is it too little too late in terms of Chris Rock and Will Smith, Nick?
Yes, Chris Rock jokes about slap after Will Smith apology video. So Chris Rock has been making the most of it. Like, as everyone always says to you in comedy, great material. Get slapped in front of the world. Great material, though. So he's been using it. He's been saying anyone who says words hurt has never been punched in the face. He says everyone wants to be a victim. It's like, I got smacked by Shug Smith and went to work the next day. So he's making light of it. Will Smith did this odd apology video. And I, as you know, Mark, I've worked with Will, know him well.
Good friend of yours.
Good friend, but I'm a bit disappointed that he's gone a bit off the rails. He said in this video, disappointing people is my central trauma. Just speak like a human, Will. How about that? Just try saying normal things. It's just weird stuff. It's weird American psychobabble. But, you know, don't slap people. Don't say weird stuff. But at least Chris Rock is doing well out of it and getting some laughs. I think that's the entire story.
No.
It's not. No, Lewis will have a better take.
No, you're totally wrong. I saw the guy's apology. I saw Will Smith's apology. I think the guy's a psycho, personally. He hit the guy, and that's, to us as comedians, that you can't go back from that.
No.
You don't do that, and he should know better. But
hang on, you can't say you're totally wrong and then not really disagree with anything else.
I'm about to disagree.
Okay.
I'm about to disagree.
Okay.
Which is he gave as good an apology in the correct way that he should have as anyone could give an apology for, and you should accept. And he should. I'm not saying he should accept the apology. He should accept Chris Rock should accept the apology. It's not going to help. His reputational damage is so extreme.
Well, yeah, I mean, is Will Smith's career done for, do you think?
I think it's not done for, but it's done for in this present stage.
And it's
Will
tainted,
Smith.
isn't it?
It's Will Smith, the nice guy. Then he'll become Will Smith, the kind of thug. He'll be able to be in movies as a thug.
It won't be the gilded career that it could have been if he hadn't slapped Chris Rock.
It couldn't have gotten any better than
I think he'll keep making movies. But I don't think. I think that's his sort of true Oscar moments.
He could rescue it, Mark. What he does, he just says, "Look, it was Jada. She's an absolute nightmare.
That's true.
Guys, I've been living a lie. I want to get my masculinity back." And then he goes on some sort of tour with Lawrence Fox or something. He could go for that angle.
Yeah, and I think Prince Harry needs to do the same.
Harry as well. Harry and Will together on tour.
We've discussed the implications for Will Smith's career. You're both stand-up comedians. Is there any extent to which this has damaged Chris Rock, given the fact that it's all people want to talk to him about?
I would say yes. Yes. Because, yes. And I don't know why.
That's the problem, though, isn't it? Is that, he didn't slap himself. It was Will Smith. But now he'll be remembered for that, too.
I think it actually probably could help him because it's huge publicity for him. Everyone has taken his side in it. Everyone thought he dealt with it really well.
Yeah.
He's already using it for material. It might be a rejuvenation for him. Where he went wrong, Chris Rock, was he had brilliant stand-up in the 90s. They did that weird woke special recently about his divorce. That one, I can't remember what it was called, Tambourine, I think. And that was rubbish. This could bring him back and he could actually be good again. When Chris Rock was great, it was when he was pre-woke. He was saying he liked conservative things, he liked Democrat things, and he was very honest. He needs to get back to that.
Yeah.
IMH show.
Well, a lot of the great American comedians have been captured by the sort of PC brigade, haven't they? If you look at sort of Jimmy Fallon and Conan O'Brien. Colbert.
Conan's not that bad. Colbert's the worst.
Colbert, Stephen Colbert, who replaced David Letterman, had a dancing troupe dressed up as needles to sell the vaccine.
Pathetic. Disgusting.
Yeah. What? Satire is dead, no?
Can I just say I changed my mind?
Okay.
I think it's not going to hurt Chris Rock. Chris Rock's stock and trade is not being a macho guy. It's being a gentle guy. And gentle guys get hit.
That's the name of his next tour.
Gentle guys get hit.
Next up, the Mail on Sunday, and another story of someone getting offended. Who'd have thought it? Lewis.
Well, this is one of those stories where the microphone is left on too long and you say something and so this guy who is making £49,000 a year, which is about $60,000 US, and the microphone was left on during a woke training session for the West Midlands Railway. And he was overheard after it was all over saying, do you think black people have black privilege in Africa? And which is, I think, an interesting question. If you're a white guy, are you treated extra badly if you're in Ghana or in Nigeria? But somebody from the East Midlands trains, who is also sitting in, who is the sister company of the West Midlands trains, ratted on him. And this is a really interesting story because it just shows how between divisions of companies, there can be incredible vitriol and competitiveness. And
now, in these meetings, there's always somebody that will complain.
That's not the main part of the story. So I didn't want to carry on if you got more. I've got a lot to say.
It isn't the main part. This is the worst thing to happen. There was a guy in America who was on CNN who was caught during a Zoom meeting.
Pleasuring himself,
yes.
Not very similar, but this is Simon Isherwood. He was a model employee, rail manager, 11 years, train conductor. Model employee, he promoted people of all races based on merit alone. So, and what he said was not racist. He was going to ask it during the session, but he didn't know how to do the wave thing because he was on his phone. And the actual leader of the course admitted it would have been an interesting question to discuss, and he would have talked about colonialism and stuff like that. So he asked it to his wife after because he didn't get to ask it during the session. Lost his job, absolutely ridiculous. He's a model employee. And not only is he not racist, I think the training he was being forced to go through was racist because it said that white people were inherently racist. And it was one of those white privilege struggle sessions that he had every right to question it. Now, the Free Speech Union has helped him. He's managed to get a 5-figure payout, but he still lost his job. And he had
a 5-figure payout.
Which is not that many. It's not 6 figures, is it? But it's something. But
wait, that's a 5-figure payout. Is 1, 2, 3 is like 10,000.
Yeah, exactly. It's in that ballpark. It could be more.
Yeah.
But he's still been cancelled, and he still has the stigma of that. And as he says here, he says, I may have won the employment tribunal, which he did, which was great, but he says, but have I really won? Absolutely not. I feel completely destroyed. I was unfairly sacked in disgrace from the best job I've ever had. I can't even look back at those 11 years with any affection because of the way I was treated. I was left feeling like some kind of criminal when I'd done nothing illegal. I'm not racist. I never have been, but because of this, there'll always be a stigma. And that's exactly right.
So you believe, Nick Dixon, and we'll ask Mark to be adjudicator on this, you think he was going to ask this question?
No, he says he was, and I believe him.
He says he was.
And even if he wasn't, I don't see it as particularly that bad. It's a sort of satire, if anything, on the... He's in a training session being told you're inherently racist because of white privilege. Right. And he just goes, well, do they have black... It's a kind of satirical question to his wife, and he left his microphone on.
What does Mark say?
Well, I wonder whether he, like so many people, have had enough of this political correct nonsense and that he's listened to an hour of being told that he's got white privilege and that he's racist because of the colour of his skin, which, by the way, is a racist idea. And perhaps, he thought that the microphone was off and he said to his wife, I wonder if there is black privilege in black populations.
But it came from a place of anger.
Well, you don't know that.
Yes, it does, because he's sitting there thinking, I'm sitting here through this thing where I'm being called a racist. I wonder, the hell with those people. So I agree with you. You shouldn't be fired for something like this, but these are very sensitive times. You got to be careful not to alienate. Lots of black people use the West Midlands Railway. Okay.
Well, he had no history.
It goes through the West Midlands.
Yeah, but he had no history of being racist.
As many might hate this woke nonsense, as many do.
And many
of all
do,
backgrounds and all colours.
And many do. And I agree, and I'm with you 100%, Nick, and with you. You shouldn't fire the guy over this.
Well, yeah, as Toby Young said that, it's completely wrong. He said you cannot be right that employees are not allowed to have views that they privately express about courses they attend, however odious and objectionable others might consider them to be.
But even if he came off the course and just said that was rubbish, wasn't it? What was the point of that? He'd probably get fired for saying that as well.
Yeah.
Don't forget, there was a Tory MP, and I can't remember his name to hand. Wasn't Ben Wallace, but it was another MP who refused to go on one of these woke courses in Parliament because he said, I reject all of this ideology. Mm-hmm. And I do wonder whether perhaps at a certain point people can just vote with their feet and say, I'm not doing it.
They should do. I mean, I know it's hard to do, but I hope they will.
Ben Bradley, Tory MP.
The only other funny thing was he also got in trouble for swearing, which he admitted he shouldn't have done. He said, I couldn't be aid because I thought, I'll just get effing angry. But he was talking about the oven man. His wife, I can't say it on air. His wife said to him,
what's the second
can you phone the oven man? Couldn't be bothered.
Oh, OK, bothered.
But that was actually a response to his wife, who was trying to get him to call the oven man. So that was...
Yeah, did you call the oven man? I couldn't be bothered. They thought he said I couldn't be bothered in relation to watching this course. Yeah. And they put 2 and 2 and came up with 5. How unsurprising. Let's power through a couple of stories before we go. Elon Musk and Twitter are making headlines again in The Observer, Nick.
Yeah, Elon Musk countersues Twitter over $44 billion deal amid fresh legal action by shareholders. So this is the kind of 8D chess that continues in this. So Musk wanted to buy Twitter. They resisted. Eventually, the deal seemed to be arranged, but then he backed out, citing their problem with bots. He was like, how many accounts are bots? They then sued him to try and buy it because they thought the bots thing was a kind of red herring.
And a bot is a fake account.
A fake account that he said, look, you've got all these fake accounts, you've not tackled the problem. Some people claim he was just trying to push down the share price, and then they said, look, you have to buy it. But now then the funny thing was he said, well, people said they'll have to then disclose their bot usage in court because now it's gone to court. So they sued him. Now he's countersued with a 164-page filing, and it's just all kicking off, basically.
What's the end game of this? Does he, in the end, buy Twitter?
No.
I'm worried that he won't now, but go on, Lewis.
No, he won't buy Twitter because he crazily offered $54 a share for Twitter, which is not worth $54 a share, and I think it's an embarrassment. And I think maybe he found out that he wasn't as rich as he thought.
Maybe, and
Well,
perhaps
he's the richest man in the world.
But a lot of it's on paper, isn't it?
Yeah.
And perhaps he's had a lucky escape. He might have dodged a bullet. How about this in the Mail on Sunday? And it seems copying others' work isn't always the best solution, Lewis.
Well, this is how Instagram is under severe shock, and because they're acting more and more like TikTok.
Yeah.
And I've been.
And is it working or not?
Well, I don't know if it's working. They've lost. Facebook is down as a company. I don't know if Instagram is down as a company, but it's not working because the biggest people on the platform, Kylie Jenner and Kim Kardashian, who I don't know who these people are.
But they know about you. They told me.
I can show you some videos later.
You know what it means? I've never seen. I don't even know what they do, but I know that anyway, is that they have at least 1/3 of all, or 1/4 of all of the people on the platform are following them, and they've said, "Hey, you know, it's just this TikTok type stuff is a drag."
Yeah. Well, I couldn't agree more. How about this one? Before we go, the Sunday Star next, and it looks like this gang could have gotten away with it if it wasn't for those meddling seals, Nick.
Yeah, Brits almost pulled off audacious 570 million drug smuggling plot until they met Angry Seal, and that's not the recording artist Seal, although he does get a little crazy, and I hear he's a killer. I'm so sorry for both of those jokes, and Mark. But basically, they came across a seal with a big chest. That's in the story as well. They were doing this drug smuggling attempt. They've now been sentenced to 20 years by Australia's Supreme Court because basically they came across a massive elephant seal and they looked at it and said they have to go through the seal or not. And they ended up getting arrested rather than face the deadly seal.
Oh, gosh. All right. Never work with children or animals. Really quick one, Lewis. Speechwriter reveals the secret to an amazing wedding speech.
Well, do you know what? I didn't even... I saw this, I read half of it, and I thought to myself, this guy doesn't know anything. He's one of those people that you'd hire, you know, your friend of a friend who says he's an expert.
Well, have you done a wedding speech?
I have done a wedding speech.
And as a professional comedian, it must have been amazing.
Well, you know what? It was amazing. It wasn't amazing because the bitterness, it was too soon after my divorce.
Brought back unhappy memories. What do you think about wedding speeches? Best man speech. That's comedy in the wrong hands, isn't it? It so often implodes.
It's frustrating for me because I'd be so good at it, but I've never been invited because I don't have any friends. And that's the big hurdle for me. But I'd be so funny.
Well, when I get remarried, you'll be my best man.
Thanks, Mark. To another Mrs. Dolan. Because the one thing this guy missed was be in the room, play in the moment, be in the room and be funny, be in the moment. That's what he misses out. And like you say, Lewis, we know way more than this guy about speeches.
Yeah, and it's such an important event, and you're leaving it to an amateur to do.
Yep. Well, there you go. Well, we were in the hands of the professionals tonight. Thank you so much to the brilliant Nick Dixon and Lewis Schaefer. We're back tomorrow at 11 for more headliners. And don't forget, it's Mark Dolan tonight from 9 o'clock. We'll be looking at Liz Truss. We think she's going to be our next Prime Minister. We'll do a big question special on that. Plus, Katie Price's other half, Carl Woods, and lots more to come. So I'll catch you tomorrow at 9.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me from 9 p.m. to midnight every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but